Okay, hey guys, what's up? Alicia Cross here, and today we're talking about carbs. Are carbs bad? So if you are new, I am Alicia Cross. I am a personal trainer, a wellness coach, a yoga instructor, and I've been helping clients just like you for over 18 years. I do this with yoga classes, private training, semi-private training, wellness coaching, and I help you cut through all the confusion out there, especially when it comes to nutrition and diet. And I help you embrace exercise and strength training and show you how yoga can help you reach all of your goals. I keep you accountable, keep you motivated, do this with my weekly Facebook Lives here. Make sure you like my Facebook page, like and follow my Facebook page, Alicia Cross Training, and while you're at it, same thing on Instagram, Alicia Cross Training, so you can find out when I'm going live, you can ask me questions, you can get motivated, see all my recipes, and if you are here with me live, say hi, give me a wave so I know that you're here, and whether you are watching live or you're watching replay later, thank you for being here. Post a question anytime and I will respond. So, today, talking about carbohydrates. Are carbs bad? And yes, I do have bad in quotes. So I'll be using a lot of air quotes today as we talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, short for, carbs are short for carbohydrates. And carbohydrates, just as their name implies, they are carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. So we're just going to call them carbs for short a lot here today. So carbohydrates or carbs are one of the three macronutrients. So your macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. So carbs are one of the three macronutrients. So are carbs bad? Short answer is no. But we don't want to stop there, so let's keep talking. So no food or food group or macronutrient is inherently good or bad. There are foods that lead you closer to your goals and those that don't. And everything is, it's got to be taken in context. It is unique to the situation. It's unique to the person. Take, for example, if you are thinking, well, I want to stop eating all of the white carbs. I'm going to eat whole wheat carbs. Well, I have celiac, so anything whole wheat is not a good idea for me. So where you may be thinking whole wheat's really healthy and great, it may not be. And you may not have celiacs, but if you have any kind of insensitivity to gluten, then that's not going to be a great idea for you. Look at even rice. So we have this idea in our mind that brown rice is better than white rice. Well, brown rice has been shown to have more arsenic. White rice has less arsenic. And in my opinion, white rice just tastes better. So if I'm going to have rice, I have white rice because one, it has less arsenic and I like it better. So look at even if we're talking about sweets. So if you are, let's use a specific example. I have a client who, she has weight loss goals. She was told by her doctor that that her cholesterol's up. She needs to do something about that. She missed a workout, and the next day I saw her eating cake. So probably the cake on that day was not the best decision for her. Now let's say that you are, you're eating very well, and you are working out, and you're moving in the direction you want to go with your health, your weight loss goals, whatever else you're working on, and there is a special occasion, and you know that you're going to have dessert. Okay, then on that day, dessert may be a great idea for you, and you eat it, and you feel good about it, and you just get right back onto your regular scheduled routine. So the context, the situation, the person, all of those things definitely play into whether a food is appropriate for your goals or not. French fries. Let's think about French fries. If you're having French fries every day, any of it, pizza, French fries, any of that stuff that we would think of as quote unquote bad, if you're having that every day, probably not a great idea. But if you're having, French fries once a week or pizza once a week, you're really having a food that you enjoy, especially after having, a great week of working out and eating healthy and sleeping really well, then that's probably a good idea that you have, pizza or French fries or whatever it is that you want. So everything is definitely context and person specific and dependent. But I think why carbohydrates or carbs get this really bad rep is because when people hear carbs, they just think of processed food like cake or cookies, pasta, breads. So if you come up to me and you say, well, I stopped eating carbs, Well, one, you probably didn't because vegetables are carbs. You're probably still eating vegetables. And two, I'm just not going to give you, a high five for that because a few reasons. So let's backtrack a little bit and talk about how carbs kind of came to be demonized. So back in the day, I don't know, maybe this was early 90s, I don't even remember what the woman's name, she came out and she said, fat makes you fat. And this kind of gave rise to this whole Snackwells issue where we took the fat out of food and then just loaded it up with sugar. And then of course that led to a bunch of health issues and we realized that was really a mistake. And then that gave rise to Adkins where we switched from demonizing fat to demonizing carbohydrates. And so that diet was really full of fat and protein. Yes, fat and protein. And what happened there from my experience, and if you have a different experience, please share it with me. But what I heard a lot is Adkins worked. I lost 40 pounds, but then I gained 80. So the problem with the Adkins is it was not sustainable. And I feel like we're the pendulum is still swinging that way where we have, keto and paleo, and these things are, we're very restrictive. And now you sort of have the pendulum coming back a little bit and you have this paleo-ish. Take, for example, even Whole30. So Whole30 is really just paleo for 30 days. And they, made the switch where they started allowing sweet potatoes because they realized it wasn't sustainable for people to not have any carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates. So we take it to these extremes and then we kind of find our way, hopefully, back to the center. But this thing is still lingering out there that carbs are bad or carbs make you fat. So hopefully I'm going to clear up a little bit of that, shine some light on this, give you some information, and help you to make some really good choices. Again, not that things are good or bad, but the food choices that support your goals. So carbohydrates. They are broken as one of the macros, one of the 3 macronutrients, and your body breaks them down as glucose, which is kind of the basic block. And then the glucose is stored in us and in animals. Glucose is stored as glycogen in the muscles and the liver. In plants, glucose is stored as starch. So glycogen and starch are the same thing. Glycogen is in animals, including humans, and starch is in plants. This is why you hear starchy vegetables or sweet potatoes, because they have more carbohydrates than, say, broccoli. So when you're eating carbohydrates, break them down into glucose. They get stored as glycogen in the muscle, in the liver, and then whatever doesn't get stored doesn't get stored in the muscle or the liver gets converted to fat for storage. And this is why the more muscle you have, the more glycogen you can store, and then the less that's going to be stored as fat. So this is one of the reasons why you can eat more calories when you have more muscles. Because you have more storage room for that glycogen. When you are at rest, your body is burning mostly fat for energy, except your brain. Your brain cannot burn fat. Backtrack. Okay, so when you're at rest, you're burning fat. And when you work hard, so when you're doing sprints or you're working anaerobically, you're doing a really heavy lift for 1 to 5 reps, then you're burning carbohydrates. So you're burning fat at rest, and then as you switch into working really hard, doing a sprint or doing a heavy set for 3 reps, you're going to burn carbs. And so let's say that you're doing, cardio, you're doing a steady state aerobics. Steady state cardio. So then you're going to be kind of burning some kind of mix of carbs and fat. So you absolutely need carbohydrates to fuel your workouts, and then you need the carbs when you're done working out to replenish because you used up all your glycogen stores, and you have to eat the carbs to rebuild those stores. So I like to compare it to going on a road trip. So you got to fill up your tank with gas when you go on your road trip, but then when you get back, you've got to put gas back in your car because you got stuff to do. You got to go to work tomorrow, you got to run errands, you got to drop off the kids, so you can't just have the car sitting there with an empty tank. Same thing with your body. You've got to fuel up before your workout, and then you've got to replenish after your workout. So that's why your carb heaviest meals are going to be pre and post workout, which will work out perfectly, because the days you work out, you're going to be eating a little bit more, and the days that you compared to the days that you don't work out. So it's going to come from that little bit more carbs pre and post workout. But if, say, you didn't work out, or maybe, you know, that day for you was a gentle yoga practice, you're not going to really need to load up on carbs or replenish after yoga. So you will just kind of naturally eat a little bit less on those days that you're not doing an intense workout. Okay, so where do we get these carbohydrates from that are being stored as glycogen in our body? So for our carbohydrates, let's see, you have the simple and the complex, and you've probably heard this, that the complex carbs are good for you, and that is what is coming from starch. So that is anything that is plant-based, grains, nuts, legumes, seeds, soy, any kind of vegetables, which of course the potatoes are going to have more starch than, say, broccoli. But all of those are carbohydrates. Vegetables are carbohydrates. Now, when you're looking at something like, say, nuts, they also, of course, have things like fat and protein, but they do give you some carbohydrates and some natural sugars. So it's very rare that a food only has one nutrient. It's going to have, like, even vegetables have a little bit of protein, so there's going to be all of the macronutrients in there. It's just whatever it kind of has the most of is what we will qualify it as, right? You're not going to say, if you're looking at eating peanuts, you know, they have a lot of fat, so you'll make sure that you're keeping in mind that that's not just a straight protein source, that's also a fat source. Same thing with beans and legumes. You know, they do have protein, but they're also very carb heavy, so you don't want to just chalk that up as your protein and then getting another carbohydrate source. Like they have both. They have a lot of carbohydrates. So just keeping that in mind, that the foods have a different balance, different mix of macronutrients. Okay, so those are your starches, your complex carbohydrates. And then your simple carbs are coming from things like fruit, honey, dairy. So those are going to be sucrose, lactose, fructose. So anything that ends with OSE is a sugar. And so while we're here talking about the fruit, I want to talk a little bit about fructose. Okay, so fructose is found in fruit, honey, table sugar, and high fructose corn syrup, which has 55% fructose and 45% glucose. So fructose must be converted by the liver to glucose. So this is the issue with fructose. So it goes right to the liver, and the liver can get really overloaded, and it just turns the fructose into fat. And then the fat will go into your bloodstream and raise your triglycerides. So this is why you know, if you see the combination of like diabetes and high blood sugar and high triglycerides, because you would think, like, what does fat have to do with sugar? But because your liver is getting overloaded. Think of, you know, somebody who they drink a lot, they get, you know, that fatty liver. So the liver is converting, it's being overloaded with the fructose. Hey, Candy. It's being overloaded with the fructose, converting it into fat. So this is the issue with high fructose corn syrup. So high fructose corn syrup is going to give you a lot of the health issues, just like if you were eating a diet really high in saturated fat. You're going to face things like obesity, heart disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, elevated triglycerides, elevated LDL, bad cholesterol. So that comes from having too much fructose. And the problem with the high fructose corn syrup is it's so concentrated. So you would have to eat 5 bananas to get the amount of fructose that's in a 20-ounce soda. So when you're eating whole foods, you are not inundating your liver with fructose, and you're also, of course, getting the micronutrients that are in there, meaning the vitamins, the minerals, and fiber, and that all affects the digestion process. So having a can of soda is not the same thing as eating a banana. And studies have shown, like, drinking your calories, drinking that sugar is so harmful. So that's what I want to tell you about fructose, and that's why I also need to be careful that you're not eating a ton of fruit. So getting away from saying fruits and vegetables, you need to be eating vegetables and fruit. Vegetables are number one, and then fruit is like 2 servings a day, no more than that. So if you have a diet that's really high in fruit, that could mean that you're not getting a lot of vegetables, or you're not getting a lot of protein, you're not getting a lot of fat. So fruit is good for you, but just like anything, you can go overboard and have too much. So nobody's saying that fruit is bad, but you want to maintain you want to stay in your appropriate levels of sugar. And while fruit is natural, it is still sugar, and it is a simple carbohydrate. Okay, so what are the levels of sugar that you want to have? How much do you need? So remember I talked about the brain cannot use fat for energy. So our body burns fat at rest, and the reason why it does that is to spare the sugar, the glucose, for the brain, because that's what the brain needs. So how much do we need? Well, at the very minimum, your brain needs, we think about 130 grams per day to fuel the brain. That's just if you're sitting around doing nothing. Because remember, we talked about if you're having workouts, especially intense workouts, you need carbohydrates. So 130 grams a day of glucose for the brain. And the World Health Organization recommends that no more than 10% of your total calories come from all sugars, natural and added. So that would be about 200 calories, which is 50 grams or 12 teaspoons. So that is about 2 pieces of fruit. Hey, Rihanna. And I really like to use this World Health Organization recommendation because it doesn't separate natural and added. It's just 200 calories or 50 grams or 12 teaspoons from sugar. What else did I want to say about that? I don't remember. Nope. So of course, if you're eating, vegetables or sweet potatoes, they're going to have a little bit of sugar, but not as much as you're going to find in fruit. They're also, everything, of course, that you're eating that's natural has fiber, and fiber is really important, again, for digestion, and it's taking up space, it's helping to keep you regular, so all that comes from eating natural foods. So again, you may have this idea in your mind that, well, I'm giving up carbs, and you are giving up processed food. Which is great. I really encourage cutting back on processed food, but you're not giving up carbs. You're not giving up vegetables. You're, as a matter of fact, going to be eating more vegetables. So let go of that idea that you need to give up carbs. So let's talk a little bit more about the storage, like what's happening behind the scenes. So when you eat carbohydrates broken down into glucose, it gets stored. So it's getting stored in your muscle glycogen, which can hold about 500 grams or 2,000 calories, and that gets used first. So when you are working out, let's say you're doing a shoulder day, you will use the local muscle glycogen to fuel your shoulders. Oh, Rihanna, very nice. Yes, girl. So you'll use that local glycogen to fuel your muscles for doing shoulder work. Now, I know this gets confusing because I tell you that you can't spot train, right? You can't train away fat. So the fat doesn't work the same way in that area. When you're pulling from your fat for energy, you're not pulling it locally from your shoulder, or, when you're doing crunches, you're not burning the fat that's on your abs. It doesn't work that way. But it does with your muscles, and that's why your muscles fatigue, and that's why I really like to superset with my clients where we work upper and then lower, because then their upper body has a chance to rest while we do lower, and vice versa. Now the glycogen, remember, you can, the more muscle you have, the more glycogen you can store there. So this is one of the reasons why you gotta build up your lean muscle, so that more of the calories you eat are stored in muscle and not fat. Okay, so after you store it in your muscles, you store it in your liver glycogen. Now your liver glycogen can sustain you for 20 miles running at a moderate pace, about 2,000 calories there. So this is basically what the amount of food that you need in a day, right? We got the sort of average of a 2,000 calorie diet, because that's how much glycogen you have in your liver that you can survive off of, which is why if you're fasting, which I'm not a fan of, we can talk about that another time, you've got to go through your liver stores too fast. So you got to go through all the stuff that's stored in there, and that's when, you know, you can start feeling bad once you've depleted that. And, you know, 20 miles, about 20 miles of running at a moderate pace. This is why if you're running, say, a marathon, 26 miles, you've got to have like those gel packs, and you'd be eating things and be replenishing your stores, because you're gonna run out, you're gonna hit the wall, which of course happened before we had, you know, a better understanding of nutrients and how to refuel for those kind of long workouts. You also have your blood glucose, so your blood sugar. You have about 25 grams of sugar or 100 calories in your blood glucose, your blood sugar. So what else did I want to tell you here? Yeah, so your muscle glycogen gets used first. And when you start exercising more than an hour, you need to replenish your muscle glycogen and your blood glucose with your liver glucose, your liver glycogen. So this is, you know, why if you're doing a really long workout, more than an hour, you might need to be, you know, drinking something during your workout. But, you know, for stress and just time efficiency, I don't recommend these long marathon workouts that last more than an hour. So something else I wanted to tell you about storage. Okay, so how does the sugar get stored? So when you eat and your blood sugar goes up, your body releases insulin, which is a hormone, and that unlocks the cells to to get the sugar into the cells, because really high blood sugar is deadly. So low blood sugar, you might pass out. Really high blood sugar is deadly. It's life-threatening. So let's say you're diabetic and you're on insulin. One of the side effects of insulin therapy is weight gain, because the insulin is unlocking the cells for storage. So one of the things that's happening is you could gain weight. So, you don't want that, because that's compounding the problem, this whole metabolic syndrome. And this is why it's really important to maintain your hormone levels. And, I was talking to a client about hormones, and she said, well, I've had hysterectomy. I don't have any hormones. Your hormones are more than just your sex hormones. Insulin is a hormone. Ghrelin, that is a hormone. It tells you that you're hungry. Leptin, that is a hormone. It tells you that you're full. So there's ways that you can keep your hormones in balance, including your insulin. And so when you eat really high glycemic food, so you eat a food that's, really carby, really heavy, then you're going to have that insulin spike, and you want that because you got to get the sugar out of your blood so that that's not dangerous. But again, that's promoting storage. And then of course you have that crash that happens after. So maintaining a consistent meal schedule, meal timing, and whatever works for you, but staying consistent with that helps to train your hormones to stabilize a little bit, which is going to help with your mood, your energy, your hunger levels, even your sleep. So that was about storage. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to tell you. So if you have questions, definitely post them here. So carbohydrates, are they bad? No, they're not. No food or food group or macronutrient is inherently good or bad. Carbohydrates are one of the three macronutrients. You have carbs, fat, and protein. You have your simple carbohydrates, which are fruit, honey, table sugar, the sugar that you find in dairy, and your complex carbohydrates, which is starch, and that comes from anything that is plant-based, vegetables, sweet potatoes, nuts, grains, seeds. Those are awesome because they also have fiber, which is really important. And your carbohydrates are needed for your brain, and they are needed for intense workouts. So you need more carbs pre and post a heavy workout, and definitely don't drink your calories. Avoid high fructose corn syrup. I'm a big fan of eliminating processed foods, and I think that's all I want to tell you. So if you have questions about carbohydrates, post them here. If you have a question about anything, exercise, nutrition, yoga, habits, mindset, that you want me to cover in a video, post it here in the comments or send me a message anytime. I'll be coming to you live again next week, either on Wednesday or Thursday, but I will see you then. All right, thanks guys. Bye.